I'm Ashwini Vethakan. This week we take an in-depth look at the 16th annual edition of The Most Respected, which ranks the nation's most admired corporations. The year 2020 was thought to be when Sri Lanka recovered from the devastating impact of the Easter Sunday attacks, and businesses could look forward to regaining their foothold in the country and across the world. But the world as we know it came to a virtual standstill in the face of COVID-19 and is now gradually rearing back to life, although with more restrictions than people are accustomed to. These have proven to be challenging times for businesses in the island, and the most admired among them have had to lead the way in coming to terms with the coronavirus fallout in the months that lie ahead. Turning to this year's Most Respected Special Edition, it maintains the 2019 methodology for ranking entities, with Nielsen's exclusive survey for LMD gauging peer perceptions by employing a weighted ranking system. The most admired businesses include 4 of the largest diversified corporates, a private sector banking duo, and 2 largest apparel manufacturers in this country, a multinational consumer goods company, and arguably the largest telecom service provider in Sri Lanka. For a record 15th year, John Keel's Holdings is perceived as the most respected entity in Sri Lanka. Thanks to garnering the highest number of votes, it is followed by Commercial Bank of Ceylon, MAS Holdings, Hayley's and Dialog Asiata. Rounding off the top 10, Sampath Bank moves to 6th, Unilever Sri Lanka to number 9, SoftLogic Holdings and LOLC Holdings break into the top 10, and Brandix Lanka remains in the 10th place. John Keel's Holdings holds the number 1 spot from the previous edition of the Most Respected rankings. Among Sri Lanka's largest conglomerates, John Keel's Holdings has remained in this position on the podium in the 15 of the 16 years since the pioneering rankings were launched by LMD's publisher Media Services. The diversified conglomerate has earned a total of 1,125 points in this year's Most Respected lineup. That's almost twice as many as its closest competitor. In addition, it is perceived as the leader in 5 of the 10 attributes covered by Nielsen's annual peer review. Rising to the runner-up spot among the nation's most respected entities from 4th place in the prior year, Combank also has the honor of being perceived by its peers as the benchmark for financial performance and honesty. MAS retains 3rd place from the preceding year. What's more, the highly regarded apparel giant is perceived as the top-ranking entity for nation-mindedness. MAS is also held in high regard for a number of other attributes, notably quality consciousness, management profile, innovation, dynamism, corporate culture, CSR, and vision. Meanwhile, Hayley's falls by 2 spots to number 4 in the Most Respected Entities pecking order this year. A highly diversified conglomerate, the Hayley's Group is commended for its financial performance, management profile, dynamism, and corporate culture. Dialog rounds off the top 5 in the Most Respected list and is once again rated as the most innovative entity in the land, as well as being the most revered for CSR. Having gained further ground as it rises by 2 places to number 6, Sampath Bank is also perceived extremely positively when it comes to attributes such as financial performance, quality consciousness, honesty, innovation, and vision. SoftLogic breaks into the top 10 of the most respected entities to occupy 7th place. That's a climb up the rankings of 8 notches. While operating across 6 business verticals, SoftLogic receives notable mentions for attributes such as innovation and dynamism. And there's another new entrant to the most respected top 10 in the form of LOLC, which sits in 8th position of the rankings, up 4 spots from the prior year. The conglomerate is also held in high regard for its financial performance. Unilever Sri Lanka drops 2 notches to 9th position in the latest rankings, and retaining its position from the previous year, Brandix Lanka rounds off the top 10 most admired entities in Sri Lanka this year. We will go in for a short break, and on the other side we shift our focus to our captains of business.
We are undertaking a project called Cinnamon Life, and it's massive. There are 6 buildings, culminating with our 800-room hotel. We have at any one time 3,500 men on site, and we have achieved the milestone of 15 million man-hours without a lost time injury. This is where a person's off work for more than 8 days. To achieve this is probably a 3-step process. 1 is our training program. We train every day, 6 days a week, every month after month. We have the best equipment, or we try to. For instance, we have mast climbers on this particular project, which no one else has, and we also have gondolas all for the external cladding works. These provide very safe and workable platforms. We also do specialist training, and one in particular is scaffolding, where we have a number of hanging scaffolds that are required so that we can undertake the cantilever sections, especially on building 2. The last part is the implementation, which is the safety officers themselves. We have about 17 regular safety officers and another 75. And it's these people that ensure that all our policies and protocols are put into place and kept into place. Also, we have signalmen, which make sure that people are not in the way when these particular machines move around. Also, during our 15 million man-hour milestone, we have had the COVID-19. And again, we have been forerunners with this precaution in the fact that we have thermal temperature readings, we have hand washing basins, we have disinfectant foot baths, we have thermal imaging cameras. In achieving the 15 million man hours without a lost time injury, that doesn't mean that we don't have accidents. We do have a fair number of minor ones. However, within the 6 years this job has been on go, we have not had one person been sent to hospital via ambulance.
Safety is not always talked about when people think about real estate, but safety on a construction site is absolutely vital, and I think it's credit to the Cinnamon Life team, the engineers, the contractor, everybody else involved, that we've managed to get 15 million man hours of work with 0 accidents. And completion is just around the corner, about a year or so away. So we're hoping we'll get through to the end with that same amazing credential.
Are you ready? Yes! Safety first!
Welcome back. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it, Warren Buffett famously said, adding, if you think about it, you'll do things differently. In a time period marked by numerous calamities, these words ring especially true, particularly with the global pandemic testing the resolve of corporate executives around the world. Among the leading business people today is a coterie of corporate captains who demonstrate valuable traits such as the drive, passion, intuition, and visionary thinking to steer a path for their organizations, even through the choppiest of waters. Our nation too is home to such astute business leaders who have inspired many more to follow. Delving deeper to gauge perceptions when it comes to the corporate arena in the island, respondents to the survey on the most respected entities in Sri Lanka were also asked to state who they considered as the most respected business person in the country. Accordingly, the top 25 nominees in Sri Lanka comprise captains of industry who have been shining lights in the local corporate sphere for many years. They hail from major economic segments ranging from apparel and tea to banking and financial services, media, manufacturing, telecommunication, and diversified interests. While many have been part of Sri Lanka's commercial scene for several decades, others have only recently taken on the corporate mantle and are deemed worthy of admiration, which is an indication of the power they wield among the nation's leading business establishments. After a break, we have an update on life on Earth. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the show. Media consumption habits have been impacted by COVID-19 lockdowns, with an accelerated shift to digital being the likely result, although the implications for trust are difficult to predict. In the Digital News Report 2020, the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism notes that the gravity of the coronavirus crisis has reinforced the need for reliable and accurate journalism that can inform and educate populations. In the countries studied, trust in the media's coverage of COVID-19 was relatively high around the peak of lockdowns in April. Moreover, trust in media on the coronavirus was more than twice that of social networks, video platforms, and messaging services. Social media is considered the chief source of concern in terms of misinformation by a majority of 40%, followed by news sites or apps at 20%, messenger apps at 14%, and search engines at 10%. While the social networks may take down questionable content during the pandemic, judgment will likely be more difficult following the crisis. In terms of access points for online news, more people have been embracing the various digital platforms that were previously used by the younger generation to a larger extent. Across the countries studied, 28% of respondents prefer to begin their news journeys with a website or app, while 26% prefer social media. Furthermore, a quarter of those surveyed access online news through search engines, followed by 8% through mobile alerts, 7% through aggregators, and 5% through emails. Of those surveyed, 56% expressed concern about what is real and fake in terms of online news on the internet. Concern tends to the highest parts of global south, such as Brazil, Kenya, and South Africa, while the lowest levels are reported in less polarized European countries like the Netherlands, Germany, and Denmark. With regard to how people get local news, a majority, 71% of the respondents report using offline and online services offered by traditional local news media. Meanwhile, 51% stated that they use local groups or pages on social media or online discussion groups as sources for local news. While regional differences exist when it comes to consumption habits, with an average of 67% of those polled across the surveyed markets report consuming video news online on a weekly basis. As for local news and information, 31% of respondents report using Facebook and other social media groups or online discussion groups as sources. In terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, 60% of those consulted believe news media helped ordinary people understand the extent of the crisis. Additionally, 65% say it made clear what people could do to mitigate the impact of the coronavirus. Furthermore, 37% of those polled say they came across a lot or a great deal of misinformation about COVID-19 on social media. That's all we have for you this week. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.